Okay, it is 12:33 where I am. I know we have people all over the world. So we're gonna start. Just a reminder that this event is recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, please, turn your camera off. Feel free to post your questions in the chat. Hello, everyone. My name is Martha Ndakalako, and I am co-convener of the African Studies Association's Women's Caucus with Patience Akpan Obong. Just a quick reminder also to mute yourselves, and then later in the Q&A, I will remind you to unmute to ask your questions. If you're not, speaking, please make sure that you're muted. I want to thank you for joining us for the Women's Caucus first event of the year, co-hosted with the African Studies Association. And we are happy to be hosting this event at the start of Women's History Month. The Women's Caucus was founded in the 1970s to recognize and promote the work of women in the ASA and academia in whatever field people found themselves in or women found themselves in, and to facilitate women's success. And today we continue that work, and our organization is a space of women's and feminist solidarity. For those of you who haven't yet, we invite you to join our community. If you haven't already, please remember to pay your Women's Caucus membership dues and to register for this year's conference. This year, we're doing something a little different. When you pay your membership dues, you can now also buy your women's luncheon ticket. So please plan ahead and join us in November in San Francisco and at the luncheon that Saturday. Today's event gives the ASA and the Women's Caucus community the opportunity to meet the winner of the 2022 Ido Snyder Book Prize, Dr. Fabienne Kanor. Dr. Kanor kindly offered to give this talk about her work on her novel Humus with her translator, Lynn Palermo. And now I invite Dr. Tomi Adiaga, the chair of the 2022 Ido Snyder Book Prize Committee, to introduce our speakers in more detail.
Thank you very much, Martha. And yes, it's a pleasure for me to be here today and also to be able to introduce our winner, a 2022 winner of the Ido Snyder Book Prize, Dr. Fabienne Kanor, to this meeting. So born in France to Caribbean parents, Dr. Fabienne Kanor is a Marian Trigue freed early career professor in the Department of French and Francophone Studies, and an assistant professor of French and Francophone Studies at the Pennsylvania State University. An award-winning writer and filmmaker, she has directed several movies, and she's the author of numerous articles and 9 books, including, among others, D'eau douce, 2004, Humus in 2006, Je ne suis pas un homme qui pleure, 2016, Louisiane 2020, awarded by French Minister of Culture, Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres. Kanor devotes her career to studying race and gender in France and in the French West Indies and West African migrations in France, an attempt to tell the untold and show the hidden and the forgotten. So part of her work actually deals with the traumatic effects of the transatlantic slave trade on the Africans and people of African descent. She has translated, among others, the Zora Neale Houston's book, Barracoon, The Story of the Last Cargo, which was published in 2019. And in October 2022, she also published a transdisciplinary monograph, La Poétique de la Cale, the poetics of the hold of a slave ship, which was published by a French publisher called Édition Rivage in which she examines the way the experience of the Middle Passage is represented in contemporary literary, cinematographic, and artistic productions of Francophone Africa, the French West Indies, and the United States of America. As a matter of fact, so all in all, she's actually published 9 books, and more are still to come, I hope. With the same desire to fill the blanks of colonial history, and with the partnership of the Museum d'Arcaine in Bordeaux, France, she's currently developing a series of documentaries called Les Contes de la Cale, related to the transatlantic slave trade, and more specifically to the hold of the slave ship, shot in Spain. The first episode of the series will be screened in May 2023, and also in 3 major French cities that used to be slave ports on the occasion of the commemoration of the abolition of slavery in the French colonies. So the first episode of this series of documentaries will be screened, will again be screened as I said, in May 2023. So as a writer, she has participated in creating an audio guide and labels for the exhibition of fictions called Fictions of Emancipation, Capot Recast. It is focused on iconography, and also this exhibition runs until 2023 in New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Kanor has just finished writing La Grande Chambre, the Big Bedroom, which deals with colonialism, immigration, and slavery. And it's going to be published by the Caribbean publisher called Ed Caribbean. So it has a 9-character play that will be published. This is also a 9-character. She's also written a 9-character play that will be published and staged in fall 2023. So in addition to all this, she's just published a literary article called La Grande Honchue, a nouvelle-étude francophone. And also another forthcoming article is titled Autopsy of a French Black Woman, which will be published in a few weeks' time in African Women in Digital Spaces, Redefining Social Movements on the Continent and in the Diaspora. So this particular article will be published in Dar es Salaam by Nkuki na Yota Publishers. Thank you. So I would also like to introduce Lynn Palermo, who is her publisher. It's a great honor to have you with us today, Lynn. So Dr. Lynn E. Palermo is an associate professor of French studies at the Susquehanna University in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, where she teaches undergraduate French at all levels and regularly integrates translation projects into her coursework. She's the translation of the novel Humus by Fabienne Kanor, which was published by the Virginia University Press, University of Virginia Press, sorry, in 2020. And it was also shortlisted for National Translation Award for Prose in 2021. So in 2019, she received the National Endowment for the Arts Translation Grant to support that project. In 2016, she received the French Voices Award together with co-translator Catherine Zoba-Dent. Her short translations have appeared in journals such as Exchanges, Kenyon Review Online, and World Literature Today. Her academic translations have also appeared in Dada and Surrealism. Before working in the area of translation, her academic research focused on cultural debates in interwar France through literature, the decorative arts, architecture, and world spheres. She is also an assistant editor for Asymptote, an international online journal of literature in translation, and a volunteer translator for United Nations affiliated NGOs. So it's a great honor for me to welcome both of you to this event today. Thank you. Over to you, Martha.
Thank you, Tommy, for that introduction. And now I will invite Fabienne and Lynn to begin.
Dear Martha, dear Tommy, colleagues, dear students, and dear soul sisters. Thank you so much for your hospitality, and thank you again for this wonderful distinction, which hasn't been given to me as the author of Humus, nor to Lynn Palermo as its translator, but to the protagonist of my novel. I am referring to these 14 African women taken from their home and deported to Haiti in the 18th century. This award offers them a new opportunity to escape the silence of the colonial archives, to escape the forgetfulness, to speak out and to survive. The I Do Snyder Book Prize contributes to what I term the operation of unghostization of the enslaved person, which consists of taking out of shadows the slave experience in order to bring it to light on stage, to the screen, or through literature. This exercise of translation from truth to art and from death to rebirth, raises rolling questions central to my creative work and research. Are we allowed to use our own voice to tell the story of those whose voice has already been stolen, erased, and altered? Are we able to embody the body, to carry and recall the memories? Am I strong enough, professional enough to face my intimate fears and confront the ghost from our collective post-memory? Can literature heal us for real? Can a book turn the hold into a safe space where to feel better and free oneself? I won't have time to bring all the answers to my questions here, but what I know for sure is that this Friday talk is a homage to all the women who helped us to be who we are, who prevented us from catastrophe, who spent their life to build a better society, who walked us in their arms when we felt sad, despaired, or broken, who fed us when we needed food, who always opened reasons for us, who closed our bedroom door by night when it was non-safe to go outside. We all have such women in our lives and in our memories. We all remember a lullaby, a song, or a proverb coming from them. Because my grandmother didn't talk that much. Because I was not able to understand her Creole, I cannot tell you today exactly which word she taught me. But like the women in my book, Humus, she surely showed me what dignity, resistance, freedom, and togetherness really meant. I am asking you to take 10 seconds of your time to think deeply about you personal women. And during that time, these 10 seconds of your time, I will ring my bell to celebrate each of them. Get back to Humus. When I began writing this novel based on a true event, I didn't have too much material to build my story. The only archive that I found was a 2-page report written by the French captain of the slave ship, Louis Monnier. There was any explicit reference to the captives as women in that succinct official text. The 14 were just depicted as a rebel group trying to escape the boat by jumping into ocean. I remember having thought of how myopic and selective was the European history. If half of these African women hadn't perished in waters, if the Captain Monnier hadn't reported this loss on his logbook, so I would never have known about the anecdote. Sadly, it was the women's death that made them visible and led them to play a role in history. Although terribly brief, the account of their peculiar and spectacular disease kept them momentarily away from historical anonymity. The language used in this archive is another element that has to be mentioned. By deciphering Monnier's report written in Old French, I felt that I was separated from the African women. It was actually as if these captives had never existed outside the captain's words and his memory. There was a screen, unbreakable screen between them and me. One more time, I was losing them, as I was not capable to rescue and restore their truth, the language they would speak, how they looked, the dreams, the name of the native village or the place of the death for those who crossed the sea. I had hoped that this investigation would provide me more significant and eloquent information. I was naive. The only testimony accessible to me was the sheet of paper drafted by a white man to other white men. My first-hand experience with colonial history started with this darkness. To escape it, I had to go beyond the written records and fly to Nigeria in search of details that would give the 14 women of Humus human depth. This excavation process is to do with what historian Christelle Galde calls renverser l'archive européenne to subvert the European archives. At the Nantes History Museum, where she works, Galde has been making a great effort to lower the level of darkness in the Nantes slave trade. At the time she began a mission, the French city didn't have its memorial yet, and the museum wasn't what it is today. Visitors who were walking up its stairs and circulating in its multiple rooms were surely not being told the past of the trading city. They would probably know more about the saga of Anne de Bretagne rather than about the history of Nantes, responsible for the deportation of more than 500,000 Africans. They still do not know that the slave ship which happened to deport the 14 protagonists of Humus left the port of the city more than one time. How long does it take to subvert the history? How long does it take to excavate those who have been excluded from colonial records? 16 years after the release of Humus in French, and centuries after the last passage of the last black cargo, I still seek to uncover the truth. I still feel haunted by billions of ghost black bodies packed into the hold of slave ship. I wonder what they really experience. I don't know how it meant to be not even a commodity, but something that stinks, bleeds, belches, pees, spits, vomits, barks, groans. A thing so bonded to the hold that it became a part of it. Every time I turn the pages of multi-century logbooks, I think that I have never found pieces likely to fully satisfy my need to know. Of course, some of the material available today contributed significantly to my knowledge and helped me envision the living conditions and the health situation in the hold. But who can tell me at length what it was seen, felt, and heard at the very bottom of the vessel? Who can replace the very limited data with authentic and detailed narratives? Humus explores this hole in history. Humus deals with this vacuum that creates, for those who suffer from it, a need for remembrance, but at the same time, an inability to recall. None of us has entered the hold. None of us has fallen to the depths of a ship. The only thing we're able to do is to dream about the tragedy and keeping the spectral shape of the hold in our mind as if it was a fearful secret psychic room. Humus is both an act of mourning and a gesture of resistance. It is a fragile attempt to claim, I am a living survivor, I am a witness, I am an heiress, I am a recreator. When you decide to write from the hold of a slave ship, you're surrounded with images that are not yours. They came from movies that you may have watched. They came from the archives you may have consulted, or some works of art depicting the Middle Passage. You also may have in mind books that still have haunted you, such as Feeding the Ghost, Fred d'Aguillard, ou La Très Solitude by Schwarzbart. My point is that when you go into this project as a writer, you are not innocent of slavery. You cannot immediately capture what needs to be taken. It requires time to reach the moment where you will be able to see with your own eyes, from an original perspective, what your characters want to show you. To build up each of my female characters, I read a lot and tried to forget all I read. Using a self-insert character is very common in literature. I used it, but I brought something more. I wanted to stop being the deus ex machina, the one who knows where the narrative goes. I wanted to show my readers that I too was disoriented, that I too felt lost, lost as were lost the African in chain when they were deported to a new and hostile environment, the coast, the boat, the ocean, and the island. I wanted my writing mirrored both the journey and my experience of writer wandering the moving path of creation. Since the novel has been published, I've done a lot of readings on stage with a lot of artists, choreographers, painters, musicians, singers. I've done it with the hope that my book was not only to be read in a private space. It needs to be read out in front of an audience. It needs to be performed in various ways. In fact, I do not view Humus as a written book, but as a march of an orphan body in search of genealogical traces, but a quest for a soul to anchor, but a healing dance born centuries after the catastrophe, after they stowed me in the hold of the slave ship, after they beat me and broke me for nights, after they dumped me into the bleak, vaulted Atlantic Sea. Humus is a cataplasm in tribute to my people whose bodies have been humiliated, cut, butchered, mute, arrested, shot, convicted, suffocated, but who ultimately found ways to survive. Humus is my cataplasm. Yelele, la 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 la. Yelele, la 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 la. Eloi, nous ja voyagé, oui, bénédiction du ciel et loi. Nous ja voyagé. La muette. J'étais trop jeune pour apprendre, trop petite pour grimper aux branches. me rappeler le chemin de ces cases où veillent ceux qui ne sont pas morts. J'ignorais tout du monde lorsqu'ils m'ont prise, parce que je ne savais pas ce que pleurer veut dire. J'ai crié quand j'ai vu l'eau tomber, tant d'eau sous mes paupières, comment était-ce possible? J'ai regardé le ciel, observé les nuages, en vain. J'ai cherché le fleuve, fouillé le paysage, rien. C'était dans mon corps qu'il s'était mis à pleuvoir, dans mes yeux grands ouverts que la rivière roulait, m'entraînant loin du village en cette mer où elle venait chaque jour se perdre. Sans bouche pour les nommer. Les mots sont tombés, joie, sourire, enfant, sauterelle, baobab, ils ont coulé les mots sans rien dire. Ce n'est que longtemps après que je l'ai su, quand il n'est plus rien resté, j'ai ouvert la bouche. Le vide. Le silence.
Lynn, we can't hear you. Please, thank you. Yeah.
I was too young to learn and too small to climb up to the branches or remember how to reach the huts where those who are not dead keep their vigil. I knew nothing of the world when they took me. Because I knew nothing of crying, I screamed when water fell from my eyes. So much water behind my eyelids, how is that possible? I gazed at the sky, studied the clouds in vain, looked for the river, searched the landscape, nothing. Inside my body, the rain had started. From my wide open eyes, the stream flowed, dragging me far from the village to the sea where the river came to lose itself each day. With no mouth to name them, the words fell away. Joy, smile, childhood, grasshoppers, baobabs. The words sank, unspoken. Only much later did I realize it, when nothing was left, and I opened my mouth. Emptiness, silence.
Une nuit, ils m'ont mangé le ventre. L'homme était seul, mais c'est comme s'ils étaient 100. Je n'avais plus aucune larme quand il est entré. Je songeais seulement à mon doigt dans la gorge, ce doigt qui ne suffirait jamais à tout enlever. J'ai pensé qu'il faudrait que j'en mette 2. La main, le bras, jusqu'à ce que toute l'eau de l'homme parte. Il n'a plus jamais recommencé. Sans doute savait-il pour mon doigt. À présent, j'ai mal quand je regarde ma main, mes jambes flageolent, je saigne, serre les poings et m'efforce de penser à quelque chose de beau.
One night, they ate my belly. The man was alone, but felt like 100. I had run out of tears when he came in. I thought only of my finger in my throat. The finger that would never be enough to get rid of it all. I would need 2, my whole hand, my arm, until this man's water was gone. He never tried again. No doubt he knew about my finger. Now I hurt when I look at my hand. My legs tremble. I bleed, clench my fists, and try hard to think of something beautiful.
Je n'ai plus la date en tête, ni le lieu.
We'll just say it was an ordinary day, some African town wedged between forest and water. Upon arrival the night before with a group of 10, 5 of us had perished during the long trek, I had immediately been sold. My new masters paid the asking price, pressed to set sail after long months of waiting. It had all happened quickly, the hot iron on my skin, the descent below deck, the cries in the hold as the ship weighed anchor. An hour passed, an entire night, a lifetime, it seemed. We were so sure we'd end our days down there, slapped about by the waves, forgotten, forgetting who we'd been.
Appelez
Call them
comme
whatever
bon
you
vous
want.
semble.
I
Je n'ai
no
plus les
longer hold
prénoms
their
en
names
tête.
in my head,
À peine
barely even their
les
faces,
visages
turned
tournés
towards
vers
the ocean,
l'océan. Et qui
facing
de
it,
l'affronter, enfin,
laughing.
riait.
Was I
J'en étais,
did.
moi
I,
aussi.
we
J'ai,
jumped
je,
together.
nous
We
avons sauté.
jumped. She
Ensemble, nous
jumped.
avons
We
sauté.
did
Mère
it.
sauté. Nous, mère sauté. Mère sauté. J'ai, nous avons sauté, sauté. La mer, nous avons sauté. Nous l'avons fait. L'Amazone.
The Amazon. The day is cut in two. It is noon, past noon, when we all climb up to the deck together. We leap.
Marchons sur l'eau, marchons sur l'eau.
I have the time to shout, pointing toward the nearby coast. Today is a day without victory, but we will return to avenge ourselves.
Nous reviendrons, chasseresses, faucheuses, archères. Oh, nos fusils, nous porterons, tous les tuer, nous les tuerons.
Armed with a big razor, I slash their sails, slice their skins.
Artilleurs, porteuses de baïonnettes, avec nos houes et nos sabres, nous retournerons leurs entrailles. Nous les aurons, et de nos flèches vengeresses, inonderont leurs veines du poison qui tue, qui tue, qui tue, qui tue.
A shout. I turn to look. 3 of my women have been taken. 2 others are wounded. An Amazon does not abandon her peers. I reverse course and swim back toward the ship. Aroused by all this red, the wild beasts of the circle snapping ever deeper into the flesh of the bodies. Just let them try to touch me, I'll smash their faces. The tiger cannot hurt the leopard. The Yovos are now 5. Aim their weapons at me. The young girl is crying. Everyone hears her bawling. They shoot. They let me live.
En bas, là où les yeux perdent le voir, ne savent ni ombre, ni nuit, ni quand. Mon plan a échoué, mais je recommencerai. Pour sûr, je m'enfuirai. J'ai toute la vie pour ça. Le corps en fer, je ne dors pas, veux pas, comme une guerrière m'exerce, rêve de victoire et de combats sanglants. Longtemps, le bateau marche, une fois manque tombé, mais la mer qui parle fort soudain se calme. Et un jour, nous arrivons.
They let me live. Down below, here where eyes lose their sight. Don't know if dusk or night or when. My plan has failed, but I will begin again. I will escape. I have my whole life for that. Body in irons, they've put me back in chains. I do not sleep, don't want to. Like a warrior, I flex my muscles, dream of bloody battles and victory. For long days, the ship marches onward, at one point almost founders. Then the raucous sea suddenly goes calm, and one day we arrive.
La vieille.
The old woman. By jumping, I thought I was putting an end to it. I'd let myself sink with no regrets. To those who hoped to swim back to land, I said nothing. I knew things. I was an old woman. I'd seen my man and my daughter depart. So I thought I had died when I came to, little by little. A man was leaning over me, rubbing my chest hard, jabbering away in a strange language of dogs. I wanted to tell him to be quiet, but the juices of the sea were smothering me. I must have died for real because all daylight was gone when I opened my eyes. No one left on deck, none of the other women who had jumped. Where had they gone? They never returned. Back in the hold, I laid down and prayed. May a great fire be lit to tell the heavens that death has passed through.
Des sœurs sont brisées, qu'on l'annonce à l'incréé, le grand créateur. Mais il faut attendre le Huawei pour ouvrir le chemin jusqu'au pays des ancêtres. Au bleu, loin là-haut. On raconte que ces femmes n'ont plus d'ombre, pas de Huawei pour les branches mortes qui en partant se sont coupées du village, pas d'ombre pour celles qui ont sauté.
They said I'd lost my tongue, that I must have lost it when I jumped. They said I would never make it to the end, that my heart would give out right after the sea. That's what they thought, but they were wrong. I endured. The sea held me.
On a dit que j'avais perdu la langue, que j'avais dû l'égarer en sautant. Il disait que je n'arriverais pas jusqu'au bout, que mon cœur lâcherait juste après la mer. Ils pensaient, mais ils avaient tort. Je durais. La mer me tenait. On dit qu'elle rôde encore. On dit qu'elle rôde toujours. Que le grand astre éteint, elle poursuit sa course, profitant de toucher terre pour reprendre souffle, de la clarté de la lune pour perdre les hommes aveuglés.
They say she's still prowling. They say she's still roaming. When the great aster is snuffed out, she still goes on her way, coming ashore to catch her breath, using the moonlight to shake off men blinded.
On dit qu'elle n'a pas de mémoire, qu'elle ne se souvient de rien. Insouciante, transporte les bouteilles, celles où les morts ont glissé leurs prières serrées, leurs ultimes espérances.
They say that she has no memory, remembers nothing. Unconcerned, she carries bottles into which the dead have slid their prayers, their last wishes.
Moi, je crois qu'elle en sait davantage, qu'elle porte et consigne l'histoire, nous tient à jamais l'hypocrite, la vieille, la mère.
But I believe that she knows more, that she carries and records history, holds on to us forever. Hypocrite, the old woman, the sea.
Je ne l'ai plus jamais revue, me suis arrangée pour l'éviter. Sur une île, cela n'est guère facile. Il m'a fallu ruser, mais j'y suis arrivée.
I never saw it again, made sure to avoid it. On an island, that's not easy. It took cunning, but I managed.
j'ai appris à marcher tête baissée, à fuir le jour, les arbres, le soleil. J'ai mis du sable dans mes oreilles pour ne plus entendre le bourdon des vagues.
I learned to walk head down, to flee the day, the trees, the sun. I stuffed my ears with sand to stop hearing the drone of the waves.
On
They
m'appelle
call me sequel.
séquelle. Je suis celle qui reste, l'œil qui a vu les autres partir. En 1804, nous n'étions plus que deux à parler le pays. Les autres célébraient l'île de l'autre, première république, nègre, la bonne blague, la belle affaire. Ils m'ont frappé, meurtri, tué, appris à manier fourchette, prier vierge, parler la langue correcte. Ils ont mis du sel dans ma mémoire, exposition solaire, ils l'ont brûlé, ça pue le roussi dans ma tête. Haïtienne, haïtienne. Y a-t-il quelqu'un pour m'expliquer ce que c'est? Quelqu'un pour se rappeler un mort à qui parler enfin? Assez causé. Ma langue s'use, demain est un autre jour, le premier, tout est prêt, la pirogue, le gruau, la dame Jeanne, tout est là. Ma vieille n'attend plus que moi. Demain, je lâche terre, ni boussole, ni carte, ni voile, juste l'écho du rire d'Afiba.
I'm the one who remains, the I that has watched the others depart. In 1804, only two of us still spoke of the country. The others celebrated the island of the other, first Black Republic, a big deal. What good does it do for me? They beat me, bruised me, killed me. Learn to swing a pitchfork, pray to the Virgin, speak the language right. They put salt in my memory, exposed it to the sun. They burned it. My mind smells scorched. Haitian? Can someone tell me what that means? Someone to remember? Someone dead to talk to? Really? Enough talking. My tongue is worn out. Tomorrow is another day, the first day. Everything is ready. The dugout, the oats, the demijohn, it's all there. My old woman is just waiting for me. Tomorrow, I'll
Demain,
shove off.
je lâche
No
terre,
compass,
ni boussole, ni
or
carte,
sail,
ni voile,
just the
juste
echo
l'écho du rire
of Afiba's laughter.
d'Afiba. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Fabienne and Lynn. I don't have words. You are not just telling us a story. You didn't just give us a performance, but I feel like we witnessed you bearing witness. And as you were bearing witness, the word that comes to mind is implicated in this history. And I'm not even sure I understand what I just witnessed, but I'm grateful. So I will open it up for questions while I still collect my own thoughts. I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask, but yes, if anyone in the audience has a question, to please unmute yourselves or type your question in the chat. We have about 15 minutes for some Q&A.
And maybe
mine is not a question, it's just a, oh, I'm sorry, Fabienne, were you speaking?
No, please.
All right, so mine is not a question, but I just want to echo what Martha has said. That was such a powerful presentation, not just in French, but also in English. It was like something that got all of my senses into it, the emotions, just like Martha said, it's like we were embodying the character. So thank you so much, Fabienne, for a wonderful story. I saw your book at the last conference. I'm going to get it. I'll read it. And thank you, Lynn, for doing justice to the translation so that even in English, we could still feel the emotions that the author presented in French. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this comment. And you know, I wanted to follow up the question, the comment of Martha also when she said that she doesn't know exactly what she's listening, and for us this is the same. Each time that we offer a reading of some sections of Humus, we are really hunted. I really say we, because when I met Lynn a couple of years ago, and when we started to do the reading 2 years ago, when the book has been printed, we were two separate voices, you know. So she did it in English, I did it in French, and sometimes without rehearsal, and then, you know. But now I'm just listening also the voices coming from her. And the reason when I open my text, my talk, by saying that this award is really for them, for the 14 African women who got each time a unique opportunity to speak out and to speak the way they want. Is not me doing a reading. You know, I didn't know. I mean, I came with the sections of the text, and then I'm waiting for them to embody my body. It's not about me trying to control the voice, the tone, the rhythm. And I really feel that the same for Lina. What she's done is completely different from what she's already done, you know? There's no already, actually. This is each time there's another rhythm, another strength. And so the reason why I say this is, we gave them a way to survive. We extended each time that we go to the book, whether it's for the reading or for the performing, for the dancing, we just gave them another opportunity. And I really feel them in this room where I am now. I'm in my writing room, I'm in my office, but they were there and they're still here. So that's really, really weird, really weird. And for me as a writer, it was my second book, Humus, in 2006. But as I said, 16 years after the publication, I mean, I'm really hunted by not the book, but them, because they still need us to remember and to commemorate them. There's a call for that, you know, and we just listening that. The reason why, Martha, you don't have a name to name what we're witnessing, because this is memories, this is ghosts and spirits, of course. So there's no name for that.
Thank you for that, Fabienne. Does anyone else have a question, please? Yes, Lacey.
Hi, thank you so much. This has been incredible and I really appreciate it. I've been thinking about the graphic history that just came out by Rebecca Hall called Wake, where she's trying to reconstruct the histories of women-led slave revolts. And I was thinking about how much in the book she talks about her process as a historian, using the historical imagination to try to recreate the lives and experiences of these women who are just briefly mentioned in the historical record. And I wondered if you could speak a bit more on your process and what the medium of fiction allowed you to do in terms of bringing these women who, I mean, as you said, are just these scraps of white men writing in the archives to life and really giving them a presence in history.
Thank you for this wonderful question. And actually, the good thing is now we all do the we all have this need for, we don't want to represent them, but we want to call them and to offer them a room to talk. And so this is exactly the same process. The same process won't be to write, for example, but to listen. First, to listen. Because actually, I didn't come to this novel with a plot and with a need for me to tell history or to tell stories of history. They called me. So I really felt that way. When I discovered this history, it was in a particular place, Gorée Island, so very heavy in terms of memory of slavery. So I visited an exhibition about resistance, and then I encountered the super tiny sentences where they were mentioned as a group, as I said. And I took the information, I put that in my pocket, and then I went back to my place. Back then, I used to live in Saint-Louis du Sénégal, the north of Senegal. So I went back to my home and I just say, what I am going to do with that. There's nothing and there's so much, too much for me as a young writer because it was my second book. And actually, I just decided to create 14 files, and because I didn't have electricity, so I used paper, blank paper, and every day I had my pen, and every day I tried not to remember or not to post-remember, but maybe to listen what they could say. And it went very, very slowly. It didn't go all of a sudden or after 10 months of creative writing, and it was not about that. It was really about the silence and how to try to reproduce something true in what I could understand or listen. And because, as I said, we are not innocent. When we came to develop a novel about slavery, it's difficult because we sometimes try to remember what, for example, Toni Morrison did, or the movie Le Passage du Milieu, or another, and so it's difficult to get away from that, from what we think and just to accept having no defense, having no preparation at all. You are not a writer. You are just a listener and someone who agree to remember. So it was really about me, instead of taking my role as a writer very seriously, it was more about, okay, there's a lot to listen. So now I'm going to listen. And so now the process was also painful because when it comes to writing the book, so you need to deliver, at the end of the day, you need to deliver to the publisher something. And Humus was not like the one you see. It was much thicker because I put so many silences on it. So blank pages, for example. I wanted, for example, for the mute one, I didn't want to just reproduce and then in 10 pages and it's over. I wanted to incorporate a lot of silences. And so my only way to create these silences was to create blank pages. But guess what? The publisher said, Fabienne, it's a lot of money, so we cannot do that. And so now this is a limitation of the medium that you chose to reproduce that. So the reason why I really enjoyed the reading is because I can put the silences where I want, where I feel like they want. So there's a freedom completely incredible compared with the frustration that the cinema or the movie, because I'm working on a movie currently, and it's very hard. The question of the representation. Are we allowed to represent something that we've never experienced? Can we just, try to work with imagination, fantasy? So it was also about that. So the process was painful because I couldn't put all the energy that these women gave me in one simple book.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And maybe, Lynn, you have something to say about, because we talk about the book that you mentioned. Oh,
well,
I don't know if, yeah.
In terms of filling in the blanks and with imagination, I had spent a lot of time in the colonial archives working on the World's Fairs, and especially the colonial exhibition of 1931. And so I was reading everything through the colonial filter and trying to hear the voices behind it. And so this this whole idea of, and I always kind of had to restrain myself from letting my imagination go wild, because my imagination, to stick to history and see what was logical in the blanks and that sort of thing. But and so seeing this novel coming, being inspired by these huge silences, historical silences, to me, it was just one of the many things that really appealed to me. This is what we can do. This is what the imagination can do. And the disorientation that the reader feels, to me, was just an amazing part of the novel, that the reader is constantly thrown off balance, and which was something that I had not experienced reading the archival materials. And so it showed me that, how far the imagination can go beyond even what the history can tell us, to connect with the human beings behind it. It's
I actually have does anyone have a question before? Okay, I have a question, Lynn. I was just thinking, there are things that are lost in translation, right? And I don't have a formed question here. I'm just thinking about the work of translating a text like this, a story like this, and then also the silences, right? There's already something lost, right? Maybe you can speak to like your experience translating this novel.
Yeah, I was just working on translating a short story of Fabienne's that will come out in an anthology later this year. And the editor I was working with kept trying to get me to fill in the blanks and, to make everything connect better. And we had this back and forth by email saying, and I was saying, no, this is a mark of her writing. This is an essential part of her writing, these gaps, these silences. And it took me back to my early stages of Humus, when I did the same thing. Like, I was trying to figure it out myself, what's going on here. I felt like I needed to know what was going on, to be able to translate it. Like that passage where it says the boat arrived, we arrived. And we don't find out for a long time where we have arrived. And yet there's a description of the place. And I'm thinking, I kind of need to know where I am in the world to work on translating the description. So I would say in my evolving work on this book, but also as a translator, is growing to be more at ease with the gaps in the silences and to respect them and to look more closely at them to understand what they're doing, what their purpose is, and how can I maintain them. That's probably so this was the first novel I ever translated, and I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be when I started, but that is probably one of the biggest realizations for me as a translator of this book, but also as a translator in general, to not just look at the words, but to look at the silences and respect the silences and find out how to handle them.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
May I just quickly say something?
Yes.
Well, as a translator myself, so I quite understand what Lynn just talked about, because when you translate a book, you're translating everything, which also speaks to Lacey Farrell's comments there, that you're not just translating words, you're translating emotions, you're translating culture, you're translating everything that goes with it, and it's not an easy easy thing to do. So I think I just I am really appreciative of what Lynn has done in this book, because people don't actually appreciate what it means to translate a book, because they just see the finished product, but what goes into it is huge. So thank you for that.
And I really appreciated the collaboration with Lynn, because this book, Humus, has been translated in Spanish, for example, and I haven't had any conversation with the translator. So he did his job, and all of a sudden there was a book. So the title was the same, Humus, but it was all in Spanish. And I was a little frustrated and curious at the same time, because I said, oh, but how could he was a man, how could he understand exactly what I wanted to mean when I was talking about, for example, the periods of women in the hold of the slave ship? And because there's a lot of waters inside the hold, there's of course the tears, but also all the waters inside the bodies. And then I was expecting that at least on this point, maybe he could contact me and ask me some questions, because really Humus, there's a translation of Lynn, but before the translation from French to English, there's from silence to a language, but after that, there's from what I not understand from African languages, but my imagination of a descendant. And so I tried also to reconnect that. It was not it is not a French. If you read that, I mean, any French speaker who open Humus might have a lot of questions about the words that I used, because some of them came from Wolof. For example, there's a little song inside the book in Wolof. Some of them are some traces of some African proverb, Benin proverb, for example. It could be. I try to twist multiple languages, and so some of them also are refer to the Creole. So it's very complex in terms of, in terms of linguistic, it's very complex. So I really appreciated the fact that Lynn spent a lot of time just to ask me some questions, very important. And say this is how it should work, especially for this kind of books. So I really, we writer should be available to these questions because it is a process. Translation, this is the definition of the process. So at least without me answering some of questions, it would be bizarre sometimes, some sections, because I try to explain the things and try to explain to myself also at the same time. So I really think that this is a wish way to do. And she had the time for that, which is really precious.
May I quickly respond to your question regarding the Spanish translator? What I would advise you to do, because this is a problem that comes up with translation all the time, I would advise you to look for a third-party evaluator to evaluate the Spanish book for you, translation for you, and the woman for that matter.
Yeah.
And then see where if there are discrepancies or not, so you can address it.
Yeah, this is an excellent suggestion. I will do that, and especially because the translator is died now, so he's dead.
Oh.
So yeah. And so at least I have the book with me, so I will do that. Yeah, absolutely. And the publisher has gone. So for me, it would be very interesting now, because I've got the rights on the translation to retake and to meet with a translator and a woman. I agree with you, and then to see how he works. But yes, so this is like a dead text, today, because there's no one who can talk about this text, and I'm not sure that the translation is the right translation. So yes, you're right. I would do that. Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, we are a little over time. So I just want to thank you again, Fabienne and Lynn and Tommy, for the introduction, and everyone who's still here, people who came, for this event that, will definitely stay with me for a very long time. And I love, this is a welcome haunting. So so thank you so much, Fabienne. And thank you. Thank you, Lily and the ASA for hosting this event too.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Tommy, for this wonderful presentation. Marta, for your welcoming words at the beginning. We had a long conversation, very fruitful. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much, and thank you all of you. To have been here with us tonight. Yeah, it's tonight for me now. In the middle of the night.
Yes.